Hey guys, how is everybody doing? Today we got our fifth episode of The Boys Season 4, Episode 5, titled Beware of the Jabberwock, My Son. That's a stupid fucking name. So after my massive thoughts of last week's episode of Episode 4 of The Boys Season 4, I would praise that is one of the best episodes of the entire series, and so far the best episode of the season. I really loved last week's episode. I praised it. I've been bragging about it ever since. All my friends who watch it as well, I've been saying how much I love that episode. So I went into this episode with very big expectations because of how much I adored that last episode. So, did this live up to my expectations after the spectacular episode 4? Unfortunately, no. And unfortunately, guys, I have to say this might be the weakest episode of this season so far. I really did not care for this episode too much. There are still great things in this episode, don't get me wrong. There are still great things about every episode of The Boys. Even if it's not very good, there's still moments here to like, but however, I just didn't really care for it. And this might sound stupid and it might sound oddly confusing, but advertisement kind of fucked this episode for me because the main trailer for this season, reveals a lot about this episode for some reason. Because when you watch that episode, you're like, when you watch this episode, but then you also kind of think about the trailer that I watched, or maybe you didn't watch it, I don't know. But when you watch the trailer, but then when you watch this episode, you're like, the advertisement for this episode really kind of screwed it over because it was very predictable, and I knew it was going to go with like the sheep and the animals. Like they had the compound V in them. Like it was very on the nose. Like I wasn't surprised when when one of the chickens showed up, when a sheep showed up, when a cow showed up. I'm like, well, they're gonna do fucking something weird because I've seen the trailer for it. It's just like, well, it also didn't help that the cages in the beginning of it didn't really help. But yeah, episode 5, I'm a bit disappointed by it, but hey, there's still things to like. One of the main things that I really liked about this episode was what they're doing with Homelander and Ryan, to where they're kind of building out their relationship again. We did not see Ryan in the last episode because of Homelander's and Ryan's fight at the end of the third episode. We did not. Ryan was absent from the last episode, and so now he has come back. And Homelander realizes after visiting his home and where he was basically created, he realizes that he doesn't want to make his son like him. He does not want his son to become like him. He wants him to have his own free will, and as he says in this episode, he doesn't want him to become a slave in a way, because Homelander was basically raised a slave. He was told to do this, how to do it, to look cool in front of people. He was forced to do that, and now he realizes that he's trying to do that to his son. And he realizes he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want his son to have the lifestyle that he did. So he's letting Ryan do his own free will. And even in this episode, there is a pretty cool moment. It's just like, what do you want to do, Ryan? I won't yell at you. I won't be mad. What do you want to do? Seriously, tell me. I will let you do it. And like he lets him help out someone that he wants to help, and he enjoys it, and he realizes that I have my own free will now. I really like that about this episode, and I'm really curious what they're doing the next episodes, because what they're doing with Lander and Ryan, I'm invested. I am curious. I want to know what they're going to do with those two. I am wondering if Ryan will end up going with Butcher or he'll stay with Homelander. I have no idea, but what they did with those two in this episode was one of the big standout moments. Yes, this will be spoiler free as well, but I'm going to give a little minor spoiler. It's nothing huge, it's nothing that's going to ruin this episode for you. I'm not going to really ruin everything for you. I won't really go into it much, but this is just something that I'm interested in, is that Starlight seems to be probably losing her powers. Now, I don't know if that's what they are doing, but in this episode, she kind of struggled to get her powers working, to where light was kind of coming out of her eyes, but it didn't work all the way. Her hands are like just turning red with no light coming out of it. They're trying to kind of play with you that she might actually end up lose her powers. That maybe Starlight, since she possibly went too ballistic on Firecracker in the fourth episode, that she might not uh, have her powers anymore. That she's slowly kind of losing them now. I don't know if that's what they're going to do. I don't know if that's the plan. If they do that, I am interested to see what they'll do with it. Again, it's not a big spoiler. It's not really anything to ruin the episode. They don't really do much with it. They only kind of tease it a little bit here and there, maybe only like two moments in this episode, possibly three, I have no idea. But it's only little small moments in this episode, and I'm curious to what they'll do with it, but I don't know if that's what they're going to do. This might sound stupid, but I don't know why, but I feel it has to do with the cold weather. Because this episode is a very cold setting and it's snowy. I don't know if that has a factor to do with it. Probably not. But we'll see as as the show goes on. But as of right now, if that is the plan, I'm curious to what they'll do with her afterwards. But the big thing about this episode, to why I loved it and why it is a, I think is still a decent episode, but the reason that it's not considered one of the worst for me is Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg is one of my favorite British actors out there. I love him as an actor. I love him in Shaun of the Dead, favorite zombie movie of all time. Hot Fuzz, I love him in that. I love Simon Pegg. He's a great comedic actor. I believe he is one of the funniest actors, very underrated actor, if you ask me, and I love him. When he was in the show and I saw that he was in the show, I'm like, oh, Simon Pegg, I love him. But he's not really in it much. He's in a bit at the beginning of season one. I think he only popped up a few times in the other seasons, but in this season he ended up having a stroke. He ended up having a stroke early on in the season. I believe it was in the first or the first episode or towards the end of the first episode of the season where they showed that he ended up having a stroke and he's been in the hospital this whole time. But at the end of the last episode, Huey's mother gave him Gen V. He gave it, not Gen V, Compound V, excuse me. He gave him Compound V, and now he's awake from his stroke, and he just says he feels great. But what they do with him after that, because we all know Compound V gives you powers. You're going to get powers. What they do with him in that, with that, is amazing, and it's truly terrifying in moments because I won't spoil it too much, but all I'll say is that he kind of has Alzheimer's for a moment, to where he kind of loses his memory. He kind of thinks Huey's like 11 years old at one point in the episode, and he's like terrifying one moment, but after he realizes what's going on, it will pull at your heartstrings, man. Like, it will leave you emotional. Like, you will legit feel sad, and like, if you get emotional really easy, then go in with caution, basically. But if you're like me, that's pretty hard to get emotional at some points. It left me emotional because it was a pretty sad sequence with Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg possibly gives his best performance in the series. Well, actually, it's not even a high bar. He's not in it much. So, yeah, he gives his best performance in this entire show. One of his best performances, even. So, yeah, I loved him in this episode. He was great. I love that they really focused on him in this episode. I didn't expect that to be one of my favorite moments of this series so far. But, yeah, I thought he was great in this. And, yeah, it was surprising to me. You know, something just as I like a little joke. The boys usually likes to kind of make fun of the community in real life and politics, and like they usually like to make fun of people in real life, and that's why I love the show. I liked how they kind of made fun of Marvel and the MCU with phases of movies and TV shows because there's like a part in in this episode to where they show the phases of it, like Phase 9, Phase 8, 10, 11, and all that, and about all these new movies and shows coming out, going direct to streaming. That was obviously a poke at MCU when they show what phases of like which movies are going to be in this phase and that phase. I thought that was pretty funny. It got a little giggle out of me for someone who has grown up with the MCU and who's a huge Marvel fan and has that. So that was pretty reassuring. My final little note that I have on this episode, and this is something that unfortunately really disappointed me, and something that it was the worst way to introduce these characters, and that is the characters from the first season of Gen V with Kate and Sam. They were the two characters at the end of that show to where they kind of became the villains of that season in a way at the very final two episodes of that season. They became like the two final characters, and Homelander at the end of it came and took out the heroes and took them in part of the seven, and now they're part of it. And there was parts about the trailers showing that they were going to come in. There was rumors saying that they were going to come in and have a huge role in the season, and I was very excited about because I really like Sam and Kate as characters. And when I found out on Twitter and by Eric Kripke and other insiders that they were going to show up in this episode, I was really excited. I was really excited to see what they were going to end up doing with them. And they do it the worst way possible. They do it at a fucking panel showing off what is come next in these 7 movies or shows. That is how they introduce them. They come out, they announce like this new TV show about young soups basically, and then at one point Kate becomes like a little bitch again, and she's like, "I'll do anything for you, Homelander." It's just like you brought them in just to have them do this. It was just upsetting. It unfortunately was because they're great characters. I really enjoy them as characters, and I was really hoping to see they would do more, but apparently, so far, they just introduced them at a movie panel thing, and then Kate just saying they'll do anything for Homelander. Sam doesn't really do anything besides just looks nervous like a little hunchback, like, well, as she usually does, but that just really disappointed me. But yet again, it's still early in the series. They just got introduced on episode 5. We still have like 3 episodes left, I believe. But I don't know. I didn't like that they introduced them that way. Again, the night is young, basically, with these characters in the show. Maybe they'll do something big with them. Maybe they'll have a big role in season 2 of Gen V. But let's just wait till the future, basically. But overall, the episode is fine. I thought the episode was okay. I do believe this is the weakest of the season so far because just how great the last episode was. I was really hoping this would be a great follow up, but it unfortunately just wasn't. But it was just an okay episode where I'm still interested in the show. I'm still going to be watching it. So we shall see with next week on episode 6, but let me know your guys' thoughts on episode 5 of The Boys, excuse me, of episode 5, season 4 of The Boys. Did you like the season? Did you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? Do you think this is better than episode 4, one of the weakest, one of the best of the season? Let me know in the comments below and we shall talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for all my latest videos. And for next week's recap of episode 6 of The Boys. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next time.